Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Brighton Area Schools Board of Education meeting. As everyone knows, this is Veterans Day. I would like to first extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our veterans to whom we owe an enormous debt of gratitude. In honor of this special day, I have asked Steve Conaway, who's the commander of the Brighton VFW post, if he would be so kind to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, and he has graciously agreed to do that. So, Commander, the floor is yours.
Thank you. If everybody would please stand, remove your covers if appropriate, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander. And before he leaves, I would like to point out Commander Conaway was recognized by the Livingston County Veterans Council as the September Veteran of the Month for all of the work and dedication that he exhibits to supporting all the veterans in our community. And so on behalf of the board and the district, Commander, we want to congratulate you and thank you for your service, not only to our country, but your continuing commitment to support all the veterans in our community.
I just want you to know that it's my honor to serve the country, and I couldn't be more proud to have done so.
Thank you.
Can I continue?
I understand you have something you'd like to address with the board.
So just a little background. The VFW, American Legion, and AMVETS out of the post here at the American Spirit Center has a golf outing every year. And we designate $1,000 from the fundraiser to go to a veteran organization or some other community organization that we feel is worthy. And we decided that we would want to donate $1,000 to the Brighton area schools. And what we're requesting be done with the money is two $250 grants for two 8th grade students for their Washington, D.C. trip who may not otherwise be able to go on the trip. Additionally, the additional $500 we would like as a scholarship for a high school student, and our recommendation would be one of the students from the National Honor Society Veteran Appreciation Committee receive those funds. However, we won't tell you what to do with it, and we're not going to be involved in picking anybody for this. So at this time, I'd like to present the school with a $1,000 check.
All right. Ms. Ackermite, roll call, please.
Mr. Storm?
Present.
Mr. Conley?
Here.
Mrs. Marks?
Here.
Ms. Reed? Here. Mr. Myers?
Here. All right, that moves us to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed, supported by Mr. Storm. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? That passes 5-0. That moves us to the superintendent report. Dr. Outlaw.
Okay, I'm going to start us off with our amazing student leaders. Charlotte and Nancy, come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashlyn Burns,
And I'm Charlotte Manzik.
and we're both seniors at the high school, and we're here to tell you a little bit about what's been going on at BHS.
So to start off, in the past couple of weeks, we've had 2 student-led assemblies. The first being the senior class meeting, which was led by senior class council. And in this meeting, they basically talked about future plans and events for the senior class. And we also took our class picture. Another assembly that we had was ran by the Peer for Peer group at the high school. And this was the 9th grade Yellow Ribbon Assembly. And here they brought awareness to mental health by having many speakers that share their personal stories and experiences with mental health. And they also brought up the idea of an invisible backpack. Along with this, last week, it marked the end of the NHS Cleaners Food Drive. Through the help of many community members, students, and also teachers, we raised a goal of $27,929. Along with this, the Senior Survivor Committee on NHS has been working really hard, and they recently have put out the Senior Survivor Charity application. So tonight, we actually have flyers in the back that you could take because we are looking for charities and nonprofits that are interested in being a part of Senior Survivor this year. And spread the word to anyone you may know that might be interested. Along with this, recently we had the health fair at our school, which was pre-med and health occupation students. And this health fair was open to all classes to come down, and the students took vital signs in preparation for their clinical rotations that they'll be doing throughout the community second semester.
So the leadership classes started to plan Operation Christmas Wishes. For those of you who don't know what that is, we raise money along with Yoga Strong Foundation, and we take that money and we buy Christmas presents for kids at underprivileged schools. Then we wrap those presents and then we take a day off of school and we get to go deliver them. It's a lot of fun, not only for us, but for the kids. In the past, we've done it at Ford ELC, which is a elementary school in Ypsilanti, but this year we're taking on Perry ELC, which has about 100 more students than Ford. And then Pinckney schools are going to be taking on Ford. So we're really excited for the new challenge. And we plan on raising money with different committees like Bake Sale, Hot Cocoa, Picks with Santa, Candygrams, Dash for Cash. We're hosting a euchre tournament, and we're doing caroling at Ladies Night Out, which is going to be December 5th in downtown. And then we also have groups working on Wrapping Day and graphics and stickers. Then leadership is also planning the holiday assembly. We don't have much set right now, but we decided to do an SNL mainframe for the assembly. And in the assembly, we're going to be featuring things like skits, music performances, dances, the band and the choir. Every year, leadership does a hand clap, so that's a lot of fun. And then we're also thinking about doing a weekend update segment. And then lastly, we just have some other clubs at the school doing some fun stuff. So we have DECA hosting a candy drive. And then recently, leadership also started planning the lip dub. So we're doing the lip dub a little bit differently this year. We're going to be breaking it up by sports season. So we're having all of the fall sports film a segment during advisory in 2 weeks. So we'll see how that goes, but it should be a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for letting us present to you today, and that's all we have for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Next up, I'd like to read a shining star. We're going to be honoring Brian Warden from Premier Security for his actions on October 18th. So I'm going to read this. On Friday, October 18th, Brian Warden of Premier Security realized that a Brighton employee was in distress. He soon realized that the employee was choking. This employee was in a room all by herself. Mr. Warden jumped into action, performed the Heimlich maneuver, and saved this employee's life. And just a great reminder to us that our security folks that are in our buildings are not only there to keep us safe, but they are also first responders. And they also have training that has been beneficial multiple times. So I do want to thank the Board of Education for your support of having these folks in our buildings. And I would like to honor Brian Warden as this month's shining star. So with that, I would like to, Brian Warden is not here this evening, but I would like to honor him and just say thank you so much for stepping up and for your actions. And thank you to all of our security officers as well as our police officers for everything that they do for us. Greatly appreciated. All right. Next up, we are going to have our auditor come forward. I'm going to let Dave Jones introduce him and lay the groundwork there.
Let me, first off, before I fix what's on the screen, let me introduce Nick Caceres, our CPA. He is we work with Maynard, our auditors, Yeah, Nick is pretty much our key person on our audit, and he is here to present the results of this year's audit for the district.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, as Dave mentioned, I'm Nick Caceres. Thanks for having me tonight. Tonight, I'm here to present the results of the 2024 audit. Put together 12 slides, an effort to keep it brief, but still give you some level of detail on how the audit went this year. If you feel as we go through you want more information or have questions, please feel free to just jump right in.
I'm sorry, I got to do this again to get it like a slideshow, so pardon the interruption. There we go.
There we go.
Thank you, Jacob.
Perfect. You want to go next slide? Can I click or?
I will do it for you.
Perfect. Quick refresher on who we are at Maynard Costerison. We're a mid-sized regional accounting firm with offices in Lansing and Grand Rapids. We employ anywhere between 170 and 200 people, depending on the time of year or seasonality. We provide a wide range of services to our clients beyond just the traditional audit, tax, and accounting, but also wealth management and technology services as well. In terms of our expertise, we're very well versed in the school district arena. We provide about 120 school district audits on an annual basis. To do this, we dedicate about 60 of our professional staff from about mid-May through the end of October to get those audits wrapped up and those reports submitted to MDE by the November 1st deadline. So it keeps us busy in the summer and into the fall, but definitely an area that we're passionate about. Getting into the audit results here, first and foremost, hats off to Dave and his team. Dave, Elizabeth, really everyone that we work with is fantastic. They're very knowledgeable, great to work with, and just great people. Us auditors are very skeptical just naturally, and especially coming into the year where you're turning over your assistant superintendent for finance, kind of makes us nervous, but in my opinion, I thought the audit went off without a hitch. I thought they did a great job, and I think just the transition being so seamless really speaks to Dave's skill set. But beyond just that, just the depth of the team and Elizabeth and everyone there. So great job by them. In terms of the financial statements, we did issue an unmodified opinion with respect to the financial statements. This is often referred to as a clean opinion, consistent with what you've seen in the past. Essentially, we provide reasonable assurance that the financials in front of you accurately reflect what happened at the district during the current year. So that's good news. New in the current year, it was a relatively quiet year on the GASB front, which is always good. You did adopt GASB 100 on accounting changes and error corrections, but the adoption of that standard did not have an impact on your financial statements or our audit procedures. And then one last thing, I think it's important to note is the COVID era grants are coming to a close. So this coming March, it'll be 5 full years since the initial shutdown, which is crazy to think about. Over that time, you've obviously received a ton of funding from all different agencies, authorities, FCC, Department of Treasury, Department of Education, obviously the state of Michigan. So we've been telling our clients now's a great time to kind of take a step back as that funding's beginning to sunset and take a look at your programming and make sure you're identifying revenue sources for each one of those programs. Because for certain, over the next 3 years, the revenue sources for each program is going to be vastly different than what it was over the last 3 years. So just something important to keep in mind. And I know Dave and his team will go through that exercise and hopefully they share that with you. But just important to make that note, I think, at this point. Getting into the numbers just briefly here, here's a very summarized balance sheet. As you can see, your 3 major funds are presented with your general fund, 2019 capital projects fund, and 2020 refunding debt service fund, as well as the aggregate of your non-major funds. So this would be funds like your food service, your student activities, community ed, your other debt service funds and other capital projects funds. So this presents the total of your assets, liabilities, and fund balances as of 6/30/2024. So kind of a snapshot at that moment in time. More detail on these numbers can be found on page 15 within your set of financials. But just a couple quick highlights. As you can see in the bottom left, the general fund balance end of the year with about 25.1 million. Of that 25.1, almost the entire amount, 25.0 million was unassigned, so available to spend and meet your operating needs heading into fiscal year 2025. When we take that unassigned fund balance in the general fund and divide it by current year expenditures, that ratio is about 21.6%. When we compare that to last year's numbers, that ratio using last year's numbers, that was 14.8%. So a significant increase during the current year, and that was caused by the increase in general fund balance in the current year, which you'll see on the next slide. Beyond that, there was just the 1.7 million remaining in the 2019 capital projects funds to finish up those projects that the voters approved in 2019. All right, here is the income statement side of things. So again, the same presentation, your three major funds and the aggregate of your non-major. In the far right-hand column, about 3/4 of the way down, you can see across all funds, you added about 3.9 million to fund balance. That increase was driven by, obviously, in the first column, the increase in the general fund, almost $8.9 million dollar increase in general fund balance during the current year. And then that increase was partially offset by decreases in the capital projects fund, which is expected, right? Spending down those funds that came in from the bonds, as well as a decrease in fund balance in the 2020 refunding debt service fund, as that fund was closed out as the last debt service payments for those bonds was made in May. Delving into fund balance figures just a little bit further here. I think we show this slide on an annual basis, and it just shows fund balance figures for the trailing year. So 22, 23. In this instance, as 23, 24 has not been submitted completely to the FID yet and available to the public, but it shows fund balance totals and fund balance percentage. So that's fund balance as a ratio of current year expenditures, like I mentioned on the last slide. So we've presented the statewide average here, the Livingston County average just under that, and then all districts within the county. So as you can see at the end of the previous year, your fund or the statewide fund balance percentage was about 21.2%, where Brighton was about 14.5%. Since we audited Brighton's financial statements, we're comfortable showing Brighton's 23-24 numbers. And as you can see, and as I mentioned, that percentage increased to 21.6% at the end of the current year. I will say across the board here, these fund balance figures are quite inflated. Going back to the COVID grants that I talked about, that's certainly padded fund balance in the general fund for a lot of districts statewide. I went back and looked. That statewide average as of 6/30/2020 was about 14.6%. So added almost 7% statewide to the average over that 4-year span. So I'd expect these numbers to normalize and begin to decrease for a lot of districts beginning next year. Notes to the financial statements. So these just provide additional commentary and context on the numbers I just briefly touched on. Overall, fairly consistent with what you've seen in the past, if you've been brave enough to read through those in the past. So I'll just touch on a couple of the big ones. Note 3 on pages 33 and 34 is your capital asset footnote. It details your capital asset activity for the year ended 6/30/2024. As you can see on the screen there, you added about 9.4 million to capital assets during the current year. The majority of that being your bond projects, so furniture and equipment and technology. You took about 10.2 million of depreciation on previously existing capital assets to arrive at net capital assets at the end of the year of about 109 million or 110 million presented on your government-wide balance sheet. Note 5, how do we pay for the capital assets? Generally, for the bigger projects, we finance that with debt. So note 5 is your long-term obligations footnote. details your long-term obligations as of 6/30/2024. The vast majority of your long-term obligations are obviously bonds. As you can see, 87.4 million in outstanding bonds payable through 2042 as of 6/30. An additional 330,000 in notes from direct borrowing, and that's just your energy equipment installment purchase agreements. An additional 510,000 in estimated compensated absences. So that's an estimated liability for the amount for the payouts of sick time, PTO that your employees would be entitled to upon severance. And then note 7 details the statewide MIPSers, pension, and OPEB, so your other post-employment benefits plans at the statewide level. As you can see, 2 gigantic decreases in both plans, 5.2 billion statewide in the pension and 2.7 billion for the OPEB plan. A lot of factors go into the fluctuations in those numbers, but the decreases in the current year as of the most recent valuation date of September 30th, 2023 was due to market performance. And actually you can see, and I've highlighted and underlined there, the OPEB plan is actually an asset now. So plan assets now exceed the estimated liability. So we presented it as a liability over the last 5 years that now flips to an asset on your government-wide financial statements there. So trending in the right direction. Budgetary comparison. So arguably the most important page within your financials, certainly from our perspective, but also from the board's perspective as well. Comparing the budget that the board approves to the actual results. In the first column there, the original budget you guys adopted prior to the school year starting in June of 2023. The final budget in the second column there that you adopted just before the school year ended, and then the actual results in that third column there, with the variance column in that last column being the difference between your actual results and your final budget. As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner there, you had a positive variance of about $3.5 million. When I say a positive variance, your final budget projected that general fund balance was going to increase by 5.3 million. It actually increased by about 8.9. And then getting into the last couple slides here, the single audit. So you did spend more than $750,000 in federal awards during the current year, which subjects you to a single audit in accordance with uniform guidance. This is consistent with what you've seen over the last 3 to 4 years. So a single audit is really 2 parts: the financial statement audit, which we just touched on, and then the other piece of that is the federal award audit. As part of that federal award audit, we tested the Education Stabilization Fund as our major program. So that's, you hear ESSER, the ESSER funds a lot. That's part of the Education Stabilization Fund. Happy to report no issues, no reportable findings, and a clean opinion with respect to that testing. So great job by Dave, Elizabeth, and their team. And then last slide here, you do have 2 other letters in front of you in addition to the financial statements. The 1-pager is a management letter, and it's a follow-up on a continuing comment from the prior period. As of 6/30/2024, your food service fund balance is still over the maximum allowed by MDE. So obviously our recommendation over during fiscal year 2025 is to spend that down to an allowable level and submit your spend down plan with the state. The other letter is a 3-pager, I believe. That's a required communication between us, the auditors, and the Board of Education. It's just ensuring that if anything that comes up over the course of the audit that we believe needs to be communicated to the board is actually getting communicated. In this instance, we obviously encourage you to read through that 3-pager, but no surprises in that letter. It's pretty standard language, as we had no issues during the current year. And then upcoming pronouncements. I mentioned that this year was quiet on the GASB front, but it's about to get a lot louder. Next year, we have 2 standards, GASB 101 and 102, and then GASB 103 coming in fiscal year 2026. GASB 101 is going to change the way that you account for that compensated absences liability that I briefly touched on a couple slides back. So in addition to monetary payouts upon severance, they're adding an additional piece to that liability that accounts for just sick time or vacation time used, even if it's not paid out monetarily upon severance. So obviously that liability is going to increase beginning with next year. We'll sit down with Dave and Elizabeth this winter to kind of workshop the adoption of that. It'll be a fun one, but it is what it is. GASB 102, I don't foresee this being a big one in the school district arena. That's on certain risk disclosures and talking about concentrations and constraints. If there was something going on in the community that was going to impact a concentration or constraints, we'd have to expand on the disclosures in the financial statements. But thinking about this globally, we don't think it'll have an impact on school districts. And then GASB 103 in a couple of years is changes to the financial reporting model. So changing what the financial statements will look like. It's a big standard. There's some fluff in there that I think is just change just to make change. But I think overall, the standard holistically will help financial statement users. The biggest piece is in management's discussion and analysis. It's like the first 10 pages of the financial statements where the school district gets to tell their story kind of in layman's terms. This standard will force the district and the auditors to kind of expand on the language there, telling more of the why things happen rather than just showing here are the results in a table with a bunch of numbers. So it'll help those users that are not as financially savvy understand kind of what happened at the district during the year. So that'll be a welcome change. Any questions, comments? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Caceres. We appreciate all of your work on the audit and your presentation here this evening.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
For the food service fund balance, since that's been a recurrent issue for us, not just the last 2 years, I think that comes up pretty regularly. What's our plan for managing that going forward?
Putting together a spending plan to spend down the excess funds. We did it last year. We'll continue to do it this year. It's based upon the fact that the state decided a couple of years ago to start paying for all lunches. And so it increased your food service revenue significantly. And so it turns into fund balance, and there's requirements of how much fund balance you can hold for food service, which is only 3 months of expenses. And so we're in a cycle where we're just trying to spend it as best we can. So Richard Browder will put together, our food service director will put together a plan to work to spend it down. He's already working on it.
What is the root cause, though, of why we are always significantly overfunded there?
Right now what's causing it is because the state is now paying us for all lunches.
But shouldn't they be paying us an amount that we expect to go out the door to pay for the lunches that we are providing to the students? There shouldn't be a whole lot of profit built into that. So if the state is paying us, that should be money that's coming back out again, right?
It is providing a pretty significant increase to fund balance. It is.
Okay.
Can I just ask another question about this related to the food? What are the parameters for spending those dollars? I believe last year we used some of this for equipment, right?
It's a lot. Most of it goes to equipment. And so you have to submit your plan to the state. So it has to follow all the requirements of the state, and then the state has to approve it before you can move forward with your spending plan.
Dave, I just have a quick question regarding shared services and thoughts on how that may change as we go forward into 2025 as it relates to sources of revenue.
And what do you mean how it's going to change? The program is the same.
Yeah, I guess when we think of the forecast of the revenue that the district expects to take in from shared services on a go-forward basis, how are you and Dr. Outlaw thinking about that in the context of our budgets in future periods?
That's actually.
Do you feel it will be the same, stable?
It actually has our plan this year, the budget that was put together in June had it increasing over last year. But as you know, there's a cap that if you increase more than 10%, you don't get to keep that revenue. We don't plan to increase it more than 10%.
So you don't expect it to decrease either?
Not expected to decrease.
Okay, thank you.
No.
What else? Mr. Conley?
In the budget, I heard him say that the heyday's over. So in this $5 million surplus in this current budget, where'd all that $5 million come from? What sources did it come in? Why do we have $5 million extra in a budget that was already in the black and we have plus $5 million?
So you're talking about the budget variance?
Yes.
Yes, so actually, all of that came in non-salary and benefit expenses. Budgeting salary and benefits is actually pretty straightforward because almost everybody's under contract. And so our accounting system does a very good job of projecting that. In all other categories, we spent significantly less in the last quarter of last year than we did throughout the year. So your budget is based on your run rate of finishing out the year, and we just had a really lean, and I mean in every category, because I picked it apart, because I see the same thing, and it's like, why is it so much different? So I went through it all and picked it apart in pretty much every expense category, from supplies to purchase services to utilities. Everything was below budget of what we had budgeted.
There's a really nice summary on page 51.
Okay.
And if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like there's over $1 million of favorability from operations and maintenance, which I was surprised to see.
Okay, I'd have to look deeper into that, but like I said, it was in every category. There was nothing that was over budget.
So another question. So in the near future, we're going to start labor negotiations. We hired a consultant from MESB, Rod Green, the last time. Okay, he gave up 15% in increased pay over a 3-year program and recommended that to the board as well. So as we go forward in this next step, are we going to have Rod Green again in negotiation? Are we going to have a board member on the committee that's doing the negotiations? Because I believe Roger took the board members off the committee. So how's that going to take place? Because it appears that we will have budgetary concerns here going forward. And what then leads me to believe is that then the school board will want to run and raise taxes and create a sinking fund to divert general fund expenditures. I don't support that. I believe we can bring in enough money to cover what we have going today. Now, I do support sinking fund with a purpose, and it's in a different context. So, so what's the plan? Because we're gonna start to dive into our fund balances here in these next cycles, and if you continue to pay at the level we're paying plus additional wages, it'd be a different program, correct?
So a couple things. First off, on negotiations, what we plan at this time, we've been doing some preliminary conversations among administrators. We'd like to meet with the board January, February to do some planning and to have some discussion about what the board would like to see. So we're going to start those probably early in the winter. As far as negotiations, a lot of conversation needs to happen, but we need to have some dialogue about what it is that the board wishes. One, as far as the surplus, there's going to be some conversation about surplus and some ideas on this year's surplus connected to operations. I think we've talked about it in the bond committee. Roger, did you want to mention anything about that?
Well, I mean, and this has been a topic that we have, as a board, have talked about previously regarding the capital projects. Our capital project fund, I think, is, and I don't mean to speak for all the committee members, but it's woefully deficient in terms of what we should be doing from a planning standpoint to be able to address future capital project needs, replacing fields, continue to do the things that air conditioning potentially. Right, that's exactly. I mean, those are, there's some big ticket items that, we're going to be, needing to address. So we don't find ourselves as a district where we found ourselves, 12, 15 years ago, where there was a lot of deferred maintenance that became major financial problems because we weren't being proactive in properly managing and funding our capital project accounts. So there's going to be some conversation about that, about how that will be a potential location for, as we continue to move forward with the budgeting process, to better plan for that, as opposed to just building a fund equity balance. So that's going to be part of the conversation as well, which of course would also create a fund that would potentially avoid the need, or at least minimize the need for like a sinking fund or something that would be needed longer term to address those issues.
But it's true that we're currently digging into our shared services revenue 50% to make our general fund balance. It's a pretty high number. Shared services should be used for, the non-sustainable stuff, which would be the things that we want to do. And it was never really intended to be put in the general fund for balance in our books, so we can show a bigger fund equity. So I would suggest if you take $1.5 million out of shared services, our fund equity is less than what we're reporting. But it's just an opinion on how it was originally derived. And again, the concerns like you just brought up, Roger, are real. I mean, the funding sources are not going to be the same as the future unfolds. And the issues that the school dealt with in 09, 07, 08, 09, 10, 11, I was here. And I was here as a person in the audience and also as a board member starting in 10, 11, in that area. But so it's a real situation. And I have a concern that our negotiating team, when it comes to our staff, should have someone from the school board on the negotiating team and be comprised of all things that are taking place and bring it back to the board at the board level. The board should be involved in it. And I don't think it should be brought to us by an outside party, and especially MASB. So that's all I have to say about it. But I think it's something to keep an eye on and needs to be watched carefully, and that general fund expenditures aren't, plugged and lined up with sinking funds and everything else. I think that we are capable of moving forward in a very, I think we're in great shape as this board goes into next year. We're in great shape, and I don't want to see that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Anything further? And I would also just like to echo what has been said before, but Mr. Jones, thank you very much for your work on the budget, and the work leading up to the audit, your team. We appreciate all of the great work that you and your team have done throughout the year, and it certainly is reflected in this audit. And kudos to you and your team, and we very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Just 2 quick points is I do have an excellent team, no question. But we also are really good partners. Your auditor is not your enemy, he's your partner. And we work together. We they helped us a lot with our fundraising activities, things like that. They're a really good partner to work with, and that really helps a lot too. Thank you.
The letters they wrote, it seems like they echo the same sentiment, Dave. I read through the letters and there was no pushback from management.
Thank you.
So the final thing on the superintendent's report is connected to strategic plan. This is a presentation that Dr. Mosier and team did for the academic committee at our last meeting. And it's going to be a little bit shorter version of it, but she's going to share some information about one of our strategic plan goals connected to the curriculum warehousing work through Atlas. So Dr. Mosier, take it away.
Okay, thanks. It will be short because, well, it's not a lot to show, but we do want to get kind of an update on where we're at. So this does come from our strategic plan, and it really lists under that goal 1, talking about a viable, guaranteed, and coherent curriculum. And so when we think viable, we're thinking like the sequencing and how long it takes to get through that content, and making sure every student has that opportunity and teacher has that opportunity to get through what is expected within a course. And when we think about guaranteed, we're talking about specific content and looking at standards to make sure everyone is exposed to and has that same caliber of expectation within the coursework. And then when we think of coherent, we think of the systemic piece. So what builds upon grade level to grade level. So when we think of curriculum, that's kind of a big picture overview of what we're trying to accomplish in doing this. Strategy 2 in the strategic plan specifically talks about instituting a district curriculum warehousing system where it becomes accessible for staff. But really, this also becomes accessible to the public. And we'll talk about that and show that in a minute. And then it just shows you what Atlas is. It's a web-based curriculum mapping and development platform. It's designed to manage and then the process and then facilitate the collaboration of actual work that's being done. So that's a little, do you have a question already or are we good? Okay. So why it's important, a little bit on why it's important. One, it helps create intentional curriculum review. So we've launched an idea of how and how often. We usually say 5 to 7 years is how often you should go through a cycle to keep up to date on reviewing that curriculum. It also has tools built in so we can see, I mean, easy to like how often people are logging in, but how aligned to the standards, are all standards being hit within the course? And further down the line is we start launching it and getting further down, we can look at assessments and connecting those to the standards to make sure everything is being assessed as well. It creates conversations that are much more focused. So instead of saying, I think, or we should try, we can actually narrow it back to the actual course and align to the standards or to a specific unit instead of just using our feelings, which is helpful. It looks at instruction-based curriculum planning. So it actually looks at digging deeper into the standards and connecting that to the learning and then connecting that to assessments. It gives them immediate access to the curriculum, assessments, resources, and more. So we'll show you a little bit of that. A tool for communication for all stakeholders. So we do have it public and we'll show you how to get there and some of the courses that are already uploaded so people can see the scope and sequence, what's taught in each unit. And then we call them content expectations. So you'll see that. And then it just shows best practices. So that's a little bit of why it's important. It just gives us one housing piece that can't be edited on the fly. It would be done through a process, unlike Google Drive, which we tend to use now. And so this is, and just so you know, this is not unique to Brighton. I come from prior districts where this is like really a launch. So like Oakland schools, Wayne County, they've kind of launched this idea of having a warehouse where everything is just kept. So just to give you an idea of where we're at, the ones that are posted are over there. You can read those yourself. In the review process, so these are groups that were working on it last year. They just have a few fixes to do and a few tweaks, but those will get posted this year into Atlas. And then the one on developing and revising, those are all people that are starting the work this year. So those courses will get worked on and then they will be uploaded if they get done this year, or sometime next year when they finish. So that's a little bit of that. And then I'll show you where it's at. So you can get to it through Brighton Area Schools website. You can do it one of two ways. You can scroll down to the bottom under Atlas and select Atlas, or you can go under the departments under curriculum and instruction. So there's two ways to access it. And so you'll come to like a landing page and you'll see information about Brighton Area Schools here, our strategic plan, our AER, and then at the top here, you'll select the curriculum that you want to look at. So for instance, we'll just start at the bottom. For Veterans Day, we'll go to US History. It gives you a course description. It tells you the scope and sequence, so what's taught where over the year. So this is that, guaranteed and viable. So we know that this will all be covered within a certain time. And then if I actually click on a unit, here are the standards that are taught. What's interesting here, this is kind of like getting into the weeds, but there's foundational units in US History that they pick up from 8th grade because it's taught in 5th, 8th, and then in the high school. So instead of making their own unit, they just re-embed this in this unit. And then we have something called essential questions and key concepts. And we do a lot of work around the essential questions, and we talk about a depth of knowledge level where we try to write them at more we call it a 2 or 3. So it requires more application, more thinking, and maybe even a little more justification. And this is how we create assessments. So we create assessments out of this idea. So students are applying more in US History. They've created a lot more maybe interactive assessments, a lot more application in their assessments. So that's a little bit how that works. And that, I guess that's where I'll kind of leave it as we go through it. But that is our Atlas, our warehousing.
questions?
I just wanted to first thank you. I know I said this privately a million times in the meeting, but I'm thrilled to finally see this coming out. One of the things that I thought was really valuable in the academic committee, and maybe you could just briefly talk about it, is how much work goes into developing this and what it takes to actually get this ready to put it out, because I thought that was really good information to hear.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna go over this, but this kind of gives you an idea. It looks crazy. It doesn't to me, just so you know, it's just very color coordinated for me. But this kind of goes through the cycle. I can show you an easier version, but this is what we mean when we say we develop the curriculum. We first have to kind of assess where we're at, and then that developing and mapping is where we literally go through all those standards and put them into each unit that we're currently teaching. And so standards aren't, I don't know how much you know, it's not like 5. It's like 45, 50 different standards, and they're trying to match them up. And what I would say the hardest part is when we get to like the idea of essential questions, we're bunching standards together to cover multiple ideas. Then we're working on assessments to help meet that. And that's for every single unit as it goes through. So this is done as teachers go through. It can take weeks. And remember, they do have a full-time job in front of our students. So it is like we balance, you know, what, how many people are coming out and how often, because obviously we'd want people in front of our students first. To start a process like this, they usually pick 2 days back to back to start learning the process and then working through it. And then we probably meet throughout. So I would say some people, because we don't just do like a 2-week stint in the summer, it could take almost 2 years or a year and a half before they finish it. It's because it's just ongoing. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how the assessment process changes as you are working through the curriculum upgrades?
Yeah, so I would say that, how does it change? I would say that our assessments let me go back to this. There's 2 types of assessments. So we do not do anything around classroom assessments, right? That is me checking for understanding, formative assessments, and I call it like level 1 recall type stuff. Like students need that information. But when we look at like the essential questions, like they're not going to be level 1 questions. We want our students at a higher level and a higher level of thinking. So when we look at common assessments, that's what we actually work on in there. That doesn't mean teachers don't get together to work on some other assessments, but what gets loaded here are common assessments. And so they require more application, more justification. They might be analyzing things more, and they are connected specifically to the essential questions, which are connected to standards. So we do a check to make sure that every essential question is hit, and then standards. There's even a bigger process we do. It's kind of quite boring, but we blueprint them out to make sure we identify if there's too many level 1, 2, or 3 questions. So we try to keep no more than 25% of a test at a level 1 question, right? So we can meet the standard of what we're trying to accomplish. And then we also check to make sure that any standard isn't being overly assessed, right? So there's a process for that too. Is that helping you? I don't know. Okay. And then I will say this, what's probably happened more is that we've seen more people switch over to more projects and project-based activities or assessments that then take all these and incorporate into one thing. We've also noticed probably more reflection, where we have more student coming back and reflecting on their processes to accomplish the assessment or that lesson or the unit. Yep.
All set. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mosier. That concludes the superintendent report portion of the agenda. Moves us to the call to public. If there's anyone here this evening that would like to address the board, this is your opportunity to do so. Our protocol incorporates filling out a card at the rear of the room and depositing in the box to the left of Dr. Mosier. I don't know if there have been any. So if anyone, it's your last chance if you want to address the board. All right. Seeing none, that closes the call to the
Roger,
public.
if I may be in that it's called to the public, I think, we have 3 future members of the school board in attendance, and I think it'd be great if we could just congratulate them along with yourself on the victory. So I'd like to personally extend the congratulatory thumbs up and let them all know we look forward to working with them.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Katie Tierney, Alicia Urbane, and Mr. Ken Stahl, the rear of the room. Thank you. All right, that moves us to the for action portion of our agenda. Item A, regular meeting minutes of October 14, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed,
Second.
support by Ms. Marks. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 5-0. That moves us to the Human Resources Report. Mr. Anastasov.
Good evening. We got a short report. Today, the items you're voting on is the two layoffs, which are both shared time service teachers, and just due to a lack of position at this point for those individuals. And then I did update this document and put it on. We do have resignation and retirement for your information as well added to the report.
Okay, great. Do we have a motion to approve the revised Human Resources Report that was presented at the table before the meeting by Mr. Anastasov?
So moved.
Support by Mr. Storm. Any discussion? Okay, all those, first of all, thank you to everyone here that is on this report for all of the service to the district, including our shared time services program. We appreciate all that you have contributed. In the amended version, Karen Story is included in her retirement as of December 31, 2024. We want to extend a heartfelt congratulations to Ms. Story for all that she has done. And obviously, everyone is aware of her role in the formation of our dog program and where it is today. And obviously, that wouldn't be the case without her. So thank you very much, and best wishes in her retirement as well. All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 5-0. Moves us to item C, schools of choice, second semester. Dr. Alwa.
We talked about this for future action last month. This is our school of choice resolution. We are seeking your approval to be open for middle of the year. This will be limited, but there are people that are interested in joining the district mid-year, and this is something that the district has done each year. The one change, actually, Ms. Ackermine, I think, was part of working on this is adjusting the bridge timeline to adjust with their trimester schedule. So you'll notice that the bridge is carved out with a little bit different time frame than the rest of the buildings that have semesters. So with that, we're seeking your approval.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the limited schools of choice for the second semester trimester as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed, supported by Mr. Conley. Any discussion? All right, and just for the audience's information, so the school of choice under this proposal for the bridge would actually open tomorrow. Is that right? And then closes on November 26th. And for all of the other classes in the district, that window is between December 4 and December 18. Is that correct? Okay. All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 5-0. All right, that moves us to summer tax resolution, item D. Mr. Jones?
Yes, we are asking the board to pass a resolution that will allow the district to enter into agreements with the taxing the municipalities that collect our operating millage through property taxes, so we can collect those taxes in the summer as opposed to in the winter. It helps us greatly in our cash flow during the year, since we don't get a state aid payment in the month of September.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the summer tax resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed, supported by Mr. Storm. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 5-0. Moves us to item E, technology purchases. Dr. Alwa.
So Mr. Castile, our Director of Technology last month, came in to talk about his desire to purchase 10 Chromebook carts and 360 Chromebooks. This is part of the replacement plan that he shared in September with the board. Each year, we replace a certain number of devices, and this is part of that plan. So we're seeking your approval this evening. It was competitively bid through the REMC process.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the technology purchases for the Chromebook carts and Chromebooks as presented? Moved by Mr. Storm,
Support.
supported by Ms. Reed. Any discussion?
I just have a quick question. What happens to those that we're replacing? What do we do with those? Do we return, do we sell them back? Do we sell them to students? Are they usable? Do you know?
Somebody talked about this morning, we actually talked about it.
I believe these are additions. I don't believe these are all
they're not
replaceable. Yeah,
replacement.
these are ones that are partially out of a grant and then additional ones where some of the curriculum actually is starting to use web-based items. And so we could use a few more carts as well.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 5-0. That moves us to item F, maintenance vehicle purchase.
I got this one.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, for asking the board to approve the purchase of a new van. Not too long ago, the board approved a new maintenance position for the district. We filled that position, and that new position needs to have their own vehicle in order to function on their job duties. So we went and got our quotes, and the best quote we got is a van from Brighton Ford at the cost of $46,473, and we're asking approval to purchase that.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the purchase of the new maintenance van?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Reed,
Support.
supported by Ms. Marks. Any discussion? Mr. Storm? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just, one thing that I was curious, well, a couple questions. The process to assess the cost of the van, so we're a public school, did we get quotes from multiple sources? I see quotes in the packet from Brighton Ford, fully recognized Brighton Ford is a huge supporter of not just our school and the community, but in the context of thinking about the taxpayer, what was the process of assessing a budget for this vehicle? And I guess just to maybe be more concise and clear, $46,000 for a work van seems expensive. And I guess I'm just wondering, would we have the option to purchase a 2-year-old van that has 20,000 miles on it for a reduced price?
I would think that we would, but we went out and got our quotes, and actually most of the quotes that we got were over $50,000. This one is a little bit cheaper because it is an electric vehicle as opposed to a gasoline vehicle.
Scott, do you want to come to the podium? Thanks.
So you asked if we got multiple quotes from different places. So we got a quote from Fowlerville Ford, we got a quote from Heinz Park Ford in Milford.
For all new vehicles, Scott?
For new
Or
vehicles.
used?
No, for all new. Dave and I talked about maybe getting new or used, and we both agreed that new might be better for the district. So we could look at used if that's.
I mean, I guess I'd just love to hear
That's what-
from you. I mean, as
Yeah,
the boots on the ground leader, what
We
was
did-
your rationale
We did talk
for?
about that.
So
I
what
did
was-
find one at Fowlerville Ford. It was 33,000. It was used. It had 50,000 miles on it. I talked to Dave about it, and we both agreed that new would be better for the district. We're going to have it for long term. And they don't drive much miles, so we thought that new would be the best bet for the board.
Clearly, we have
School.
plenty of money. We just got done
Right.
getting an update from the auditor, but it's
Yeah.
one of those things where it sometimes feels, when we're all part of a public body, like a public school, it's easy to go out and buy a brand new van. And if it was your own checkbook,
Right.
would you go buy a brand new van or a 2-year-old van that's $20,000 cheaper?
Well, I mean, I'd probably go with the new, be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, we've looked at them. We don't want somebody else's problem, to be honest with you. And we looked at, we got two prices from Brighton Ford. One was for 61,000. They were the highest, and then they came down. They were at 56,000. And then the electric vehicle was 56,000, and they gave us a $10,000 rebate for this from the state for purchasing an electric vehicle. So that brought it down to the 46. So we thought as little as mileage as they drive back and forth, we thought that electric would be pretty good for
The
us.
charging infrastructure exists.
Yes, we can charge it with 120. Just charges longer, takes overnight. I mean, our maintenance guy that's gonna have the vehicle is gonna be working at the high school along with other schools, but we got 4 charging stations that the board put in at the high school.
This is a more philosophical question or comment. I think, we all supported approval of the position, but it seems if in the future, for me personally anyway, it would be helpful if there's another big ticket item attached to that position, that we know that up front when we approve the position. I'm supportive of, they need the vehicle, but it would probably be helpful down the road to maybe have both of those presented at once. Thanks.
So Scott, we have written bids that you sent this out and put it up for bid, or you just have phone quotations? You written bids and put it out for bid? Actually,
We didn't put it up for bid, we went and got
don't we have to put it out for bid?
We do not have to. We have the
Thought we
option.
did, we
have
have
the option.
threshold of,
We have the option of doing our own, of going out and getting, now we still have to get 3 bids, but we have the option of going out.
These
on our
aren't
own
bids, these are quotes.
Correct, correct.
I mean, there's a difference.
Yes,
the
no,
spec,
you are correct.
We do a spec and we send it out for bid, and then everybody responds and puts their best number on there that they can, and here's the vehicle. You're allowed, with being a school, we are allowed to participate in state purchasing as well.
Correct.
So we didn't do that though. I guess I'm okay with the vehicle, but I'm not okay with the process at all. 0.
I feel the same way.
None. So my recommendation is they get put on a bid sheet, they go out for bid, you put up against state purchasing, and you get the bids that come in for a school system from all options. And I think we do have the infrastructure available to charge the vehicle. I'm not real keen on all electric cars yet, but that's just because I don't know how to fix them. If I could fix them, I'd be all set, but I'm not planning on training on them. I'm retiring that way. That's your guys' decision on that. But I would suggest that we, in all situations, actually, not just this one, that we follow the standard protocol and bidding stuff for the schools. I think it was 20-some thousand for a while. Is that correct, Roger? What was our threshold for superintendents? Or you guys would know what it was. We could just write it. Yeah.
But that's only on certain things.
Right.
That's not on
Depends on what, yeah.
purchase
What
of
it
this.
is. So this is just a vehicle, but it's not just a vehicle, it's more of the practice. So that's my position, so I'm gonna vote no.
Mr. Jones, did we compare the price to state purchasing options?
No, did you at all, Scott? Anyone?
We just put Dave Litton to
It'd be great if we could.
But I guess the state, the state bidding platform that's used for the equipment, copiers, all of the equipment that's used as part of the district, do they provide that same service for vehicles?
Have you ever checked a vehicle through a consortium? I never have, but that doesn't mean they don't do it.
Since I've been on the board over the last 8 years, I don't think we've ever bought a vehicle through the consortium. I'm not even aware if it's even an option to secure through the consortium, the vehicle purchases. I just don't, that's never been something that.
I've never done one either, so I don't know.
Yeah. As I recall, the vehicles we've purchased have been through this process, but.
Yeah, that may be true. But
I think, in prior meetings, over the last 2 years that I've been on the board, I've brought up multiple times, so it's not like tonight's the first night. I think in the spirit of just erring on the side of the taxpayer, right? That which, by the way, we're very fortunate to have taxpayers who are very supportive of our district. It'd be great if we could consistently follow a standard bidding process. What's in this packet is just someone going from dealership to dealership and asking for quotes on vehicles that are on the lot. That's not a formal bidding process. So, a bidding process is public, and then all the interested parties can submit a bid, and it's all out in the open, and we can say we gave everyone a fair shot to bid on the vehicle and awarded it to the lowest bidder.
And the other thing, Roger, you've forgotten too, is we bought a lot of used ones. Scott, have we bought a brand new vehicle in a while? They've all been used ones, correct? The vans, though. All the, well, you were the one that, pardon, a lot of them are used. But the idea is that you can do both. And Andy, you're correct. 15,000 mile 2022 is about 32,000. So it's not half, but it's a savings. So they're not electric though. That'd be a gas powered van. But I think that, I think in this situation, we need to bid it. It's just my personal opinion. And state purchasing has everything in Rogers, as far as I know, from tires to materials to vehicles, a lot of vehicles in the day. You look at state purchasing opportunities. So I can't say that this electric van is available in state purchasing, but there's certainly an opportunity for vehicles and pricing under the state of Michigan state purchasing.
All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to table this for further investigation into options for used versus new and whether a
I think
similar
new is fine.
spec
I
vehicle
think
could be.
New is fine if that's what they decide. I mean, that's up to them, right? I think that it should.
I'll support the purchase, Roger. I mean, clearly, and everyone in the audience and the community knows we have a budget surplus. We have the money to buy the vehicle. I think for me, it's frustrating that with a $46,000 purchase, we kind of just winged it again, you know, and I'd love for us as a district to have the discipline to go through a very formal bidding process. And it doesn't need to be complicated. We don't need to create bureaucracy for Scott or his team. It's kind of standard fare when you're working in a public body to demonstrate to the public that we're not just walking into a Ford dealership saying, give me 3 prices, come back and put in our board packet 3 quotes and say, here's the lowest quote. Like, it's a $46,000 purchase. That's a lot of money to just go out and award it to someone without going through a formal bidding process. That's all I ask. So, but I'll support the purchase.
If you're serious about the concern though, shouldn't we table this to go through that process?
You've sat next to me for 2 years and have heard me with other related subjects. Will tabling the issue fix the problem?
I think vote on it next month.
I don't know. If you feel it would, I mean, if you would be supportive of that, then great. But I also don't want to hold up Scott. And I'd just love to see our district demonstrate that we can go through that type of a process and make it just a non-issue. Come in our packet, here's the bid. The bid was open on this date, closed on this date. Here are the bidding parties. Here's the prices. Here's who we awarded it to. Board, do you approve this purchase? Unanimous, yes. Off to the races we go.
I mean, I don't want to talk you into voting against something, but if that's the process that you want us, the administration to follow, you shouldn't be supporting this purchase, right?
Don't be so nice to me this evening, Ms. Reed. We're good. I'm good.
I'll make the motion that we table it awaiting bids on the vehicle.
I support it.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion to table by Mr. Conley, support by Ms. Reed. Any further discussion on the motion to table?
I would just like them to follow the SOP, standard operating procedure for bidding a vehicle purchase at this level. And that it gets noticed, gets out to everyone. And everybody has an opportunity to bid on that vehicle with the specs. The key is the specs. They want an electric van. This may be the only one there is. And heck, it may be sold by the time they go back and buy it. Okay. Okay, well, that could be an issue.
Another thing to just be mindful of, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Scott, like the depreciation on these electric vehicles is severe. So, I mean, there's major issues. If you want to Google like Hertz and Tesla, like these vehicles, you pay $46,000 for them and a year later they're worth 20 grand. So,
1,000 for some. So
Yeah.
the point though is I'm, like I said, you may want to bid both and then bring it back to the board. That's I think is a great idea. So why don't you bid them both? As we talk about what we could add to this, you bid the vehicles. You're gonna have to have, you getting 1 tons, 3/4 tons. What are we buying? What level van are you buying? 3/4 ton, standard length, standard height. Yeah, Transit connects. So anyhow. Yeah, understand. So, but I think that worst case is you have to order one and it'll be a few months out.
But in the meantime, the maintenance he's driving are we reimbursing him then for the use of his personal vehicle during this time?
Are there no trucks?
No, they're all assigned to each maintenance person.
I suppose that's just the bridge we got to cross when we get this thing approved. So
All right. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to table signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 5-0. And moves us to item G, East Wing Heating and Cooling Change Order.
And also, so
Jones.
we are asking the board to approve a change order on our East Wing renovation program. The initial drawings did not include heat and air conditioning for room 106. It's now deemed it is necessary to have this room with fully functioning HVAC. And so the cost to do that is $41,132. And so we're asking for that. Since it's such a large change order, we're asking for the board to approve that change order.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the change order as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed,
Support.
supported by Ms. Marks. Any discussion? Mr. Conley?
then that funding source on that, is that going to be bond dollars? Is that going to be general fund?
It is a combination of federal grant dollars, and then the remaining portion is bond.
So what's the combination breakdown?
65% is federal funded, and the other 35% will come from the bond.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 5-0. That concludes the for action portion of our agenda and moves us to the for future action, item A, Science Room C8 renovation. Mr. Jones.
So we put out an RFP for requesting for bids for the general contractor services to finish the science room at the high school. The demolition is done. This is just to finish the room. And so just to let you know, on December the 3rd, December the 3rd will be the opening of the bids. In between that, we'll have walkthroughs, and then right after the bid is open, we'll have our interviews. So at the next board meeting, we'll have our decision to you to who will be our selection for the general contractor for the renovation of the science room at the high school.
Any questions?
I think it's great.
All right, item B, BHS fence. Scott, do you want to talk about that? Pardon me?
We can put that out for bid also, because that was just the quotes we got, the lowest price. I got asked to get a price on putting up a fence at the Brighton High School. It's, if you're not familiar with it, it's there, when you pull in the entrance from the traffic light, there's a cedar fence, and then it goes to a galvanized fence, old galvanized fence. So I got asked to get a price on a fence from there, and then the north side of the high school, the rest of the way down behind the pine trees, in that front parking lot. That would be the black vinyl fence to match all the rest of our fencing with the black slats in it for privacy. It's the same thing we have around our auto shop enclosure. And so the prices you have there are, so the fence installation was $38,900. There was no charge for the demo. The contractor, ProLink Fence, is a Brighton graduate, and he said he would like to donate the demo to the Brighton schools. There's two other prices, one for $7,500 for option one and $23,000 for option two. That is for 98% coverage versus 75% coverage. On the auto shop, we have 98% coverage. That just means the slats are a little closer together, so you can't see through them as much. So if we decide to go with the fence, this was the low bidder. If we want, I mean, there's 38,000, so we can put an RFP out and have companies come bid on it.
Any questions?
You said that you have bids?
I got asked to get some prices, to see how much it would cost. So I called Northern Fence, a ProLink Fence, and there was one other one that put our traffic gate in over at Scranton. Forget the name. I got 3 quotes on it, but we can put it, we didn't know what the prices were going to come back at. So this is over our bid threshold, so we can put it out for an RFP if the board decides they want to do that. Put the fence up. That's just a ballpark number, so
That's
you
fine.
can say yes or no. So
That's fine. All right. All right, that
What
moves
does
us
that
to,
sign mean, Roger?
what's that, to put it out for,
Does that mean put it out for bid?
yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That moves us to item C, elementary medical assistance. My understanding in communication with Dr. Allah that the administration would like to hold off on that. They're going to be looking at some additional information, and we'll bring it back at a future date for further future action discussion. Item C, career awareness and preparation course. Dr. Mosier or Dr. Allah?
So in a few weeks or at our next board meeting, we're going to look for approval for our course it's a pilot course for career exploration and preparation. So this was kind of derived out of our strategic plan actually, and other people noticing an area that we could support more students in this kind of idea and field of preparation. So that information is there for your review.
Mr. Connolly?
So what class will this draw from? Where will the students come from for this? And then where won't they be going?
10th through 12th is where it's open to
It's a great
students.
idea,
Yeah,
obviously. I mean,
where
I'm
it
just saying.
fits.
Yeah.
That was kind of the target group. What you find oftentimes at the high school level is the students have a little bit more flexibility the later they get, when they get to be their senior year, junior year. But it would be great for students to be able to do some exploration early. One of the components of this is getting out into the field and observing and doing job shadowing and some of those type of things. So that might lend itself well to a little bit older students, to your 10th, 11th, 12th graders. But that's the target group at this point.
Well, for eons, we've been trying to move back in a good co-op program here in Brighton, and we don't have one to date. So when I went to high school here, we had 200 kids in co-op. And I know many of them went on in industry to lead industry in a really great way. So we don't have any of that. And I've asked and asked and asked, pretty much blue in the face on the issue. Where is it? Where's co-op at? What happened? Why don't we have a co-op program?
So I believe we do have work-based study, which is what co-op is called, and we do have
20
students
kids.
that are in it.
20.
What's that?
How many do we have?
I don't know the number, but work-based study, there are students in work-based study.
It's variable.
It's not like back in the day where the rules changed a lot, and across the entire state, co-op there's not as many students that do it
And how's that
as
working for
previously.
everybody in the state? Okay, I mean.
I'm just saying that
I know.
the rules have changed a little bit, but we do have students that are taking work-based education currently. And I know we have a teacher that oversees that. So we do have that program.
At one time, though, we were going to have one of our principals actually oversee it and look at building something back up with regards to co-op and opportunities for students to work and get credit for school. So, I mean, it's a big deal. And we actually have approved funding to pay our teachers to do the analysis for our co-op students, correct? We approved money that they would have so many, like a couple $100 to do the review on these per person. Do you guys remember that? Do you remember that? Okay, per student, where they pay for that. So I think there's a great opportunity for our new board members and our current board to work on this co-op, and career awareness could be a beginning of that. But it's a necessity, I believe. And students, real life learning, and get to, let's say if they want to become a nurse. My daughter wore a white coat in the hospital for 2 weeks and said, boy, I don't want to be a nurse. Right? I mean, it's a great thing that they get to go do that. And not just a shadowing situation either, but the co-op can be for a credit earning situation. And I truly believe there's a reason that they don't want the students out of school in regards to administration. I don't know the give the specifics, but I can tell you that it seems like there's an attempt to keep the students in school. And some of the students really need to be out of school. So, so this career awareness does not have co-op options in it, correct? Students will be working.
It probably wouldn't meet the standards. I would honestly, John, I'd have to go look in specifically what that law says. It's been a long time that it changed, so I'd have to review it, but it wouldn't necessarily meet the co-op standards would be my guess, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't get people out in the field. And I think that's really a goal we're trying to do, is so students can start exploring things, because just like your daughter, I got a business degree and here I am in education. So, I mean, it does happen. And I think the more we can get kids out, the better.
They kind of like have a recess form in middle school. I mean, you know, we don't have recess. So, I mean, there's, I think, a lot of fundamental stuff that we look at. It's a great idea. Like I said, I just am wondering where they're going to pull and what other classes aren't going to. I mean, we're going to wipe out another art class. We only have one. I mean, so that would be my concern. And I want to make sure that that has as many opportunities for students to gain the knowledge that they need to help them in their career track. Thank you.
This is exploration. This is exploration and preparation. So it does have getting out in the field, learning about careers, but it also has things like resume writing, learning how to job interview, etiquette, things like that that are for job skills. And as we're talking about, I just want to just give a shout out to our Career Awareness and Preparation Committee. In the back, we have Tracy Richards, who actually wrote up this proposal. Thank you, Tracy, for that. We have Dr. Mosier on that team. I'm on that team. Hillary Feister-Bell. We have a whole bunch of parent volunteers. We made a lot of progress in that area, and I think our parents around the district see everything from our elementary school events that are much more meaningful for our students, and our teachers have done a wonderful job with that, to field trips, to guest speakers that we're seeing all across the district. We're seeing a lot of connection with what we're doing daily in the classroom with our students' future. So I think we're headed in the right direction, and I think this is another piece of the puzzle that's going to help us get there. So
Thank you.
Okay, that moves us to item E, policy revision adoption. Mr. Anastasoff, you want to kick that off?
Yeah.
Ms. Reed?
Yeah, I can kick this up. So in your board packet, there is a list of 47 policies total that were part 2 of potentially 3 of the 2024 Troon summer updates. So the policy committee over 3 separate days, I think total, reviewed these 47. We have reached agreement on making recommendations for 41 of them with changes that are going to be made. 5 of them we're recommending no change, and those are the ones that are highlighted in red when you received your packet. And then 1 still has options to explore, and depending on that, could get moved to a future committee meeting, just depending on where we land on those. So the policies that you have, I did link all the new proposed ones in there. I did redline the items, highlight items, those type of things to let you know what is being changed. We are identifying any local Brighton language as well as we go throughout these to make sure that any changes that we have made that are outside of Troon standard recommendations are being not only maintained from the 2022 adoption, but that are also maintained from our new recommended changes.
From the committee side, I definitely want to thank Ms. Marks and Mr. Anastasoff for the extensive work on this, and to the folks that provided feedback. Mr. Anastasoff met with our resource officers and with Ms. Mosier and some of the other administrators within the district to gather information and make recommendations at the committee level that you have seen in the reports and charts that he's put together for the board and sent to us over the last couple of months. This is probably the last package that will get done before the new board has to tackle what's left in January and February, just timing wise. So this is This is the biggest chunk of substantive work that I think we'll be able to get done this year. There are a handful of things that you'll be left with in the new year. Mr. Anastasov, I think we're down to about 5 other policies, including some of the Title IX policies
Yeah,
that are currently
there's some
subject
packages
to federal litigation. So,
Yep.
Yeah. The one policy in this chart that is marked in yellow, that's the one where we thought it would be better to have a board discussion about the options that are there. That is the threat assessment and response policy. So this is a new document, and we've lined up Mr. Anastasov did the work to meet with our resource officers and with the administration. There were points in favor of the optional language for option 1 and points in favor of the optional language for option 2. So I think it would be really helpful to have the board members take a look at the 2 options there and share thoughts and feedback on which might be the most appropriate for the district to consider. At the committee level, at least speaking for myself, I didn't feel very strongly on one version versus the other. And didn't feel comfortable in making a recommendation for which one the board might want to vote on, much less any red lines to what Troon had proposed on either of those options. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, please share any feedback that you've got on that between now and the next meeting so that we can figure out which one we'd like to vote on. If not, we can have that discussion again with the board table in December and figure that out that night. But I do think it's also important to note there were a couple of things where that Mr. Anastasov noted. Troon recommended changes, but at the committee level, we thought the choices that the board made in 2022 when we adopted this policy book were still appropriate. So as the committee, we are not recommending that we go with any additional changes to those policies, but obviously there are changes that Troon offered up in optional language, not things that we were legally required to take on, but things for us to consider. So you will see those options redlined if you click through the electronic version of this document and look at the individual policies. Mr. Anastasov redlined what was there so you can see what Troon offered as a potential change, as opposed to the committee's recommendation that we make no changes to those policies.
Just have a couple quick questions, Roger. On page 36, Jake, 4205 AG1, Criminal Justice Information Security, the note states, add over half the policy contains new language to align with the FBI's new policies. And the Troon summary says, updated to reflect FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services Security Policy, version 5.9.4. So I'm just curious, what is new with the FBI's new policies that involve Brighton area schools?
So if you open it, and I can open it up, yeah, it ended up being a 12-page document or whatever it is that they added probably about at least 6 of the pages to it. So whether it was, and my language I might have used there, it may not be new FBI, but any of the version policies that the Troon now feels like is necessary to have within the policy itself, to highlight certain components of it, along with any changes that were made in that version of the FBI's. So you do have
Are you bringing it up?
yeah. So within the added section where it starts to add a multitude of items, it talks about the incident response and support plan
Is there any way you can share that up on the screen?
yeah. mergers. See. All right, so there is a, if you start in the beginning, there is a multitude of changes as you go through the beginning of taking what was already there and adapting and adding new language to it. The section that I was referring to starts where you start to get basically all of the added red language. So it did add a lot of the security price incident information to it with modifications, but where you start here in D, this is all new.
So I guess just a quick question. If you were to just look at the public, does the public know what that acronym is at the beginning of the section?
They should have every acronym that is used, I believe, is defined earlier in the section. You're talking about
What is a CHRI?
CHR,
security breach?
so this would be the first time it is used, which is not there, they do define it. Because it's used again there. Well, I could even search for it if I can't find it quickly. I would have to look it up in here.
Is this the personnel review? The background checks?
Yeah, it's what we use for the background checks, yeah.
So it's how we have to protect the information that's used and obtained through that background check
So
process.
I guess, does a person who comes to the Brighton area schools recognize that the district is doing a background check through an FBI database?
Jake, stop by, just scroll back up a little
Oh.
bit. CHRI is criminal history
There you
record
go.
information.
Yep, okay.
So it's not yeah, there you go.
Yes, anytime we run these criminal history record information, these are our fingerprint records that we run. And so every employee or these are mainly employees that are ran through these, they have to fill out, they have to bring a fingerprint request form, they have to sign it, they have to bring it to the sheriff's department, get the fingerprints done, and then they give us the form giving us the permission to release their information to us. So they're very well aware of this.
Yeah, I guess as a member representing the public, I just want to make sure we all get and receive. I'll give you an example, youth football. I go to watch youth football with my wife and kids. My son's on a football team. We no longer take cash. So when I walk up to the gate, I now have to scan a QR code and I have to enter my personal information to get a $6 ticket to get through the gate to watch my son's youth football game. I actually have to click a disclaimer on that screen with, I'm exaggerating, 3 pages of font, 8 print, and I accept the terms to get the $6 ticket to get into the game. I have no idea where all my personal information, including my credit card information, is going. And so I just want to make sure for people who come into Brighton area schools, there's a disclaimer in bold that says, we are running a background check through the FBI's database because, I've spoken at prior meetings, working in industry, we do background checks on every single person that we hire, but we don't use the FBI's database to do that. And I'm personally grateful, right, when it involves young children, that we're using a very robust method to verify that people don't have a criminal history, that we're entrusting to look after our children at school. But I also feel very strongly that the public should be made aware that that's happening and that it's not just like a routine background check. It's a background check where we're running your information through an FBI database.
Right, yeah, the employee one is comprehensive with that. The volunteer one goes through an iChat, which is a smaller system, more in-state, but yeah, the employee one is the robust system.
Yeah,
And as you can see,
this
there's
is
a-
not parent volunteer, right?
No, the parent volunteer is the iChats. The CRIS system is for our employees.
Okay.
And the policy requires consent to.
Yeah, I guess, and so my point is though, right, in society today, we view consent as, here's a 27-page small font document that you click the little box at, then saying you consent, but no rational person can read all that detail. So I just want to make sure it's painfully obvious your information is going
Yeah,
through that
yeah, and
system.
this is through a fingerprint
Okay.
request form, yeah. And then the iChats for volunteers, they have to agree to allow us to run
Got
that to volunteer as well through that when they sign up for being a volunteer.
My last question regarding this. A few months ago, I think it was maybe 3 months ago, you came in and presented the kind of output from the Title IX investigations that had been done in our district and had actually presented policy changes to the board and the community. And I'm just wondering, does any of this touch Title IX? I went through it, I didn't see that. Does any of this touch Title IX changes?
Nope, none of the policies that we're recommending here touch the Title IX. The Title IX ones, those are the ones that partly that Alicia talked about that are being postponed to the next committee meeting, partly due to the litigation that is being, under those type of things. So not only Title IX, but any policy that is
So we should
attached to those changes.
expect in the future that that's something that will be brought. to
Yeah,
the
we
board.
want to look at that along with the changes, along with anything that we want to see.
Okay.
We agreed
So
to
it's
see what the
outside
courts
scope
are
of
doing.
this.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
it is
thank
outside.
you.
Yep, anything that's attached to that, we have not pushed forward right now.
Further questions regarding the policy revisions for the next meeting? Okay, that concludes the for future action portion of our agenda. Moves us into board committee chair reports, community recognition. Any?
I just was going to give a quick summary about the MASB meeting that I went to in October since I was representing Brighton for the delegate assembly. So I was able to go for the day, Thursday. I know they had lots of classes and other things the rest of the weekend, but I was unable to attend. So most of the assembly surrounded just making minor revisions to existing bylaws, policies, et cetera. The only major change I felt that we voted on and was accepted was a specific paragraph to encourage districts to have a robust and comprehensive prevention and education, age appropriate, around depression and suicide prevention for both staff and students, which was something that they hadn't had previously in their policy. And so they did add that in. It was very well received, and Brighton Area Schools is already doing that very aggressively, I believe. So I think we're in good shape there. I did go to 2 classes while I was there. The first was on norms and procedures as it relates to board operations. And so that might be something that's worthwhile discussing as we get closer to January with the new board coming in. The second course was data dashboards, which I know we've talked about at length at the board table. I will send you all some information on this. There was a woman in the class from Kentwood, which is outside Grand Rapids, slightly larger district than us. They have a really impressive data dashboard that I think we would love to have here. It actually was presenting their strategic plan in a way that you can just visualize in addition to reading text. And so they're using a specific company, which I'll send to you all for, you can take a look at and see. I did forward that to Dr. Outlaw, I think, right? The name of the company, and I have 360 K-12 maybe. Okay, I must not have done that. I will do that. But part of that class really got me thinking about not only the presentation that would allow to our families and to the public, but also as a driver for the board to make data-based decisions and planning as a district. So I think a good data dashboard does both of those things. So I will send that to you, but I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Just as a brief reference, we did have a bond facilities committee meeting within the last couple of weeks. Most of which of the meeting we've already touched upon here this evening on some of the other topics. They have started the work on the lintel replacements. That was the subject of our meeting last time. The initial assessment is that fortunately, and hopefully that'll be the case with the others, that as they open them up, there has not been any additional unforeseen large items that will have to be addressed or fixed. So they're, confident, at least based upon these initial couple of windows as they've opened them up, that it will be in line with what they were anticipating or hoping would be the case, and will not require a greater extensive degree of repairs. So that process is ongoing. It will continue. That will be a process that will take some time, probably into February, based upon their projections. And all of their work is obviously being coordinated with the central office staff and everyone whose individual offices are affected by that work. So that was the only additional topic that we discussed beyond what we've touched upon here this evening. So that's all I have for the Bond Facilities Committee.
For the policy committee, you already got our update, so.
Anything else? No? All right. Well, that concludes everything on our agenda this meeting. Our next meeting is Monday, December 9th at 7 p.m. I wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and very safe travels wherever you may go. And it's hard to believe, isn't it? And we will see everyone on December 9th. Thank you.
Start the question and then we can start signing all these.